Hi, I'm Kesenya and welcome to another astrology weather report where we're looking at the week ahead in the astral sky. Thanks for joining me. Now last week, if you caught my last week's video, I was talking about what I believe to be the most beneficial, impactful, empowering day of the entire year. So I talked about that in last week's video. If you're interested, the energy of that will still be unfolding obviously this week and for the rest of the year to come. But if you want to know about that in greater detail, then I'd refer you back to last week's video. But also on that day, the 6th of March, there is another energy that's unfolding, which I didn't talk about in last week's video because I wanted to focus on the big, powerful events, which were this here, the new moon, sun, moon conjunct with Neptune, and the shift of Uranus into the sign of Taurus. So that's where my focus was on last week's video. This week we're going to be talking about another event, not as pivotal, not as earth-shattering, life-changing, but still an important event that occurs on the 6th of March just the same, and will be playing out until the 18th of April. And this is this little bloke here, Mercury. Mercury will be going retrograde, or has, depending on when you're watching this video, has turned retrograde at a very important degree, the 29th degree of Pisces. This is a very, very pivotal degree. So we're going to talk a little bit about this degree. We're going to talk a little bit about Mercury retrograde, and then we're going to break it down and talk about how that's going to apply to your particular rising sign. And also, if you're interested, you can look at your sun and moon signs, because there will also be some relevance there as well that may play out. Not as strong. The rising degree, the rising sign is the most important component for anybody's chart, and the sun and the moon are important, but to a lesser extent than the rising sign. So you can check them all three out if you'd like to. But we're talking about Mercury today. Now Mercury is this gorgeous little ball of fun. He rules comedy, he rules fun, he's very youthful, he's very cheeky, quite a playful energy is Mercury, and that's why I'm wearing my t-shirt today. I thought I'd get into the mood and try and channel a bit of Mercury cheekiness and fun and comedy. Anyhow, that's what Mercury is, his energy is like, but he rules things like how we speak, how we learn, how we communicate, what we think about. He rules, he actually rules motor cars, he rules, in a lesser extent, computer technology and printers and cameras and things like that, our electrical equipment. Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, and he also has rulership over these electricity and electrical things, the internet and so forth. So I'll just explain that while I'm on that topic. There is a comparison between the first 3 planets of the solar system and the last 3 planets of the solar system. Mercury, Venus and Mars are what we call the lower octave planets. They talk about things at a general level, at a very, well, even a personal level to us, because they make personal impact upon our lives wherever they're situated in the charts. Well, the outer planets, they have a more generational impact. They're bigger scale, larger scale, more big picture scale, but they still carry the qualities of their counterparts in the personal planet realm, if you like. So Mercury has a higher octave planet or connection to Uranus. Venus has a higher octave connection to Neptune. Mars has a higher octave connection to Pluto. These 3 outer celestial planets, the planets that aren't visible with the naked eye, generally speaking, Uranus is a little bit different that way, but generally speaking, they're not visible to the naked eye. They are the upper level of all the things that each of these 3 personal planets represent. So that's part of Astrology 101. But in this case, we're looking at Mercury. And it's very interesting that Mercury is the lower octave planet that is turning retrograde on the same day as the higher octave counterpart, Uranus, moves into Taurus. So there's some real significance around our thinking, around our mental energy, around electrical systems, around electronics and technology and progressive visions, and anything to do with the things ruled by Mercury and Uranus in general. So we've got this fun little planet who can cause a great deal of mischief, is very much a mischief maker, turning retrograde at one of the most pivotal degrees in the entire horoscope. So this is what we call the Anaretic degree. The 29th degree of any sign is an Anaretic degree. It's a very powerful degree to have a planet at in your natal chart, but also in this case to have a planet transiting for the collective. It's a major transition degree, and never more so than when it is in Pisces. The 29th degree of Pisces is the last degree of the entire horoscope. Aries is the first sign of the horoscope. So 0 degrees Aries is the beginning of the horoscope. And when the sun, which will happen very shortly, the sun hits 0 degrees Aries, it's considered to be the astrological new year, the start of the astrological calendar, and then it takes a whole 365-day cycle for the sun to get back around and start again. So this 29th degree is the final degree of the whole horoscope. Now Chiron, this is a planet, an asteroid that I don't really utilize a great deal. I find him very intriguing. He's the wounded healer. When we turn 50, we come into our own regarding our wounded healing and learn to be able to heal others. But I don't tend to utilize him a great deal in my weekly horoscopes or in my readings. However, he has just moved out of the 29th degree where he and Mercury were conjunct for a small piece there. So he's just left this pivotal degree, and so we all kind of felt that, you know, we felt the tension of the final degree of Pisces being activated through Chiron. And now it's being activated again with Mercury sitting there turning retrograde at this very pivotal, powerful final degree of the horoscope. So what is this 29th Anaretic degree? Well, what can happen when we have a planet here natally and when we feel it energetically through transits is that we can have a feeling of indecisiveness. There might be issues in being able to make decisions and move ahead. You know, we might be pulled one way and pulled another way regarding the nature of wherever, in this case, Pisces falls in your chart. And because Mercury is a mental energy in the head, that can be exacerbated to this sort of indecisive feeling like, yeah, I know I need a new job, but I really don't know what I want to do. You know, what if I went and worked at McDonald's? Would that satisfy me? Maybe I should go and, you know, be head of a mining company instead. You know, like you're really pulled in a couple of different directions and indecisive about whatever house Pisces happens to be for you. There can be also with any planet at the 29th degree a feeling of boredom, a feeling of frustration and aggravation, like I just want things to change, I just want things to move ahead, but they're not changing. When are they going to change? When's this energy going to shift? We've all been feeling this on a massive scale with Uranus, who up until the 6th of March has been at 29 degrees Aries, driving us all bonkers. Well, to a lesser extent, Mercury will be doing the same thing here at Pisces, giving us that feeling of boredom and frustration with whatever he rules in the chart. So let's say you're Aries rising, well, Mercury is the ruler of your 3rd house of communications, and you might be feeling frustrated with your ability to communicate your point to people, or you want to get a speaking gig but it's just not happening for you, or you're desperate for a book publishing contract and where, you know, why is it not manifesting? I was promised this particular opportunity and it's never come, and so on and so on. So there can be frustration and aggravation regarding the things that Mercury rules in the chart. And there's this sense of urgency with when we have a planet at the 29th degree, usually related to the sign. So in this case, Mercury is in Pisces. Pisces as a sign is very spiritual, very creative. It's all about divine healing, and it's also about being able to take a break, have a holiday, you know, escape the mundane, ordinary, everyday lives that we lead and just sort of regroup and pull yourself back together. That's Pisces. Very imaginative, very romantic, very idealistic as well. So there's a sense of urgency regarding these things, like, oh my God, I just want to have a holiday. You know, how can I organize this? When can I organize this? Oh my God, I've got so much work. When am I going to be able to fit a holiday into my schedule? And I know that my soul needs it. So there's this sense of, I really, really need this, but it's not happening, and there's no space for it in my life. So we can be feeling this in many areas, and creativity is one particular area as well that might be really suffering with this at the moment. Like you just have you've got a creative block. You know, you've got a contract to produce, say you're a children's book illustrator, and you've got a contract to produce a certain amount of books by a deadline, and it's just not coming. The ideas are not coming. You do a drawing and it looks like crap, and you're like, when am I going to get this creative, divinely inspired creative juices flowing like I need to do what I need to do in my life? So there's this frustration, but also a sense of urgency that arises with Mercury at 29 degrees of Pisces. And it can cause us, because of this sense of urgency, we can make decisions very hastily, and then we make poor choices, you know. We're in a rush because we just want to get things done, and you know, we need to make it happen, got to make it happen, got to make it, come on. And we make a choice, and it's just a stupid choice, and we regret it later on. Now, this is not when Mercury is retrograde, I might add. This is when Mercury is at 29 degrees. So couple a retrograde period into that that phase as well, and it's, you know, it's kind of exacerbated, where we can make poor choices and poor decisions if we don't take the time to think about them. So beware, there's a warning there. Now also, this particular degree, the 29th degree of Pisces, is a Gandanta degree. What's a Gandanta degree for those who are new to this system? Well, Vedic astrology and Jaimini astrology, they both utilize the Gandanta theory, which is that the last 3 degrees of a water sign, Pisces, and the first 3 degrees of a fire sign are particularly important degrees regarding our karma. They relate to, if we have a planet there in our natal chart, they relate to karmic knots that we carry, sort of where we've become bound up over many incarnations. Now, karmic astrology is one of my favorite things to practice. I love doing karmic readings for people, where we look at past lives and the influences of past lives that are now playing out in our current this life situations. And so one of the tools I utilize is this Gandanta theory, which just works a treat, I might add. So, you know, the last 3 degrees of Cancer, first 3 degrees, roughly 3 degrees. It's a bit more specific than that, but I'm just for generality's sake here in this weather report, we're talking 3 degrees here. 3 degrees of Cancer, first 3 degrees of Leo, last 3 degrees of Scorpio, first 3 degrees of Sagittarius. If you've got a planet in any of those placements, here, here, or here, you are likely to be unraveling in this incarnation what we call a karmic knot. So you may have had many, many incarnations where, just say, you've been betrayed or let down, or you know, duped, and you haven't dealt with it well in past incarnations, and it's made you bitter and resentful, and so you come back and you've got to deal with it all over again. And then same thing happens, and you've got to deal with it all over again until it forms like a knot within you karmically, that in this lifetime you now have to practice and work on and focus on and work hard on unraveling, so that you don't have to keep on coming back and trying to learn the lesson that it's trying to teach you. So the 29th degree is one of these karmic Gandanta degrees. Now, as I mentioned, I probably should clarify this, I'm using the tropical system here. Jaimini astrology, taught by Ernst Wilhelm, utilizes the Gandanta degree theory in the tropical system. If you're a Vedic astrologer, it also is applied at the same points, but in the Vedic sidereal chart instead. So, so in this case, Mercury is at 29 degrees in the tropical chart of Pisces, and it's transiting this Gandanta degree. Now, the Gandanta degrees of Pisces are indicators, quite naturally, of the ending of one cycle of soul growth and the beginning of another cycle of soul growth. I mean, that just makes perfect sense, because it's the final degrees of the horoscope before you begin a whole new, you know, not a whole new incarnation, but a whole new cycle around the 12 houses and the 12 signs. So we've got 29 degrees, the I can never say it, the Anaretic degree. We've got it's also a Gandanta degree. It's the final degree of the horoscope. This is an important, powerful degree to have a planet sitting at. And then we have Mercury turning retrograde on this degree. Oh my God, what a pivotal little bit of action he's providing us in the sky this week. So as I said, Mercury, let's talk about him. He's the planet of youth. He's the planet connected to our mind, our learning, our skills, our communications, the way we speak, the way we write, the way we think. And he actually goes retrograde quite regularly, you know, roughly, give or take, but roughly 3 times a year he will have a retrograde period. And this is, so it's an energy that we're not unfamiliar with, you know. Mars and Venus go retrograde much more rarely. And so their retrograde periods are like heavy duty stuff, full on. Mercury is still, you know, packs a punch, but it is much more familiar to us because it occurs reasonably often. So we're familiar with this energy, but it's a different to normal type of energy regarding the way we think, regarding the way we communicate and speak, regarding our human relationship with our technology and with our cars and with our, you know, contracts and legal matters and other things that Mercury rules. The energy is different, and this is because Mercury is closer to us. He's closer to Earth or the energy is more powerful when a planet is retrograde. So and look, if you want to know more about retrograde planets, I highly recommend doing Lada's course. If you've got a lot of retrograde planets in your chart, then really it's beneficial for you to understand them by doing Lada's course in retrograde planets. Also, she did a fabulous video last week that I highly recommend you watch if you want to understand the astronomy of retrograde planets and how they work and therefore how they will affect us. But like I said, this is the most familiar retrograde season, the Mercury retrograde. We need to be more, look, the general idea is that we need to be more careful during this retrograde period. We need to dot our I's and cross our T's. We need to not take our computers into the repair shop to be dealt with. I did that last Mercury retrograde, stupidly. I should know better. I took it into the local dealer and took my laptop in, and he destroyed my laptop. You know, it needed fixing and he absolutely wrecked it. Fortunately for me, after Mercury retrograde, I was able to take my laptop to my brother-in-law, who is not a computer specialist. It's a hobby for him, and my lovely brother-in-law got my laptop working again. But in the meantime, I'd gone and bought a whole new computer setup, which I love, which is fabulous, which is brilliant, and it's helping me to create these videos for you every week and do my readings, and it's just changed my life. I love my new computer, but it was a pest when I dealt with it. So we just need to be conscious, I guess. If you don't want to, you know, have to deal with a shitty computer, you know, during Mercury retrograde, well, you know, don't take it to be repaired anywhere. Don't do anything or fixed up or, you know, adjusted in any way. Just leave it till after Mercury retrograde if you don't want a headache. But this then leads me to my next point. Shamanic astrology teaches us to look at the big picture, not just the small in the now moment. That's the way politicians function, and it's shit, to be quite frank. They're not, oh golly, don't get me on my political bandwagon, but many politicians do not look ahead for, say, 10, 20, 30 years ahead and how are things going to affect society as a whole. They're living in the now. Who's going to get voted in at the next election, you know? And we can, with Mercury retrograde, we can tend to do the same thing. It's like, okay, I don't want this inconvenience right now in my life, thank you very much. But shamanic astrology and also evolutionary astrology teaches us to look at the big picture of what is really going on here. What is the lesson to be learned? Now, what I just described that happened to me last Mercury retrograde, I thank the good Lord for, you know. My laptop died through no fault of my own. Just went to have a regenerated spruce up or fix up a few problems, and it died. But then what that resulted in the big picture was a brand new computer for me. that is far better, far more powerful, much better programs. It's more up to date. I love using it. It's got a bigger screen. Like, it's just everything I've wanted in a computer. And now it's a blessing. I'm so glad my old laptop died, and now my old laptop has been regenerated, which is another theme of Mercury retrograde period as well. We can regenerate things. My old laptop has been regenerated, so I've got two computers. You know, I can use it out at a cafe, my laptop, and I can use my home computer at home. So that's one example of, in the big picture, this headache during Mercury retrograde actually gave me so much benefit and blessing. I'm very grateful for it. You might have a situation where you have a car crash during Mercury retrograde, because Mercury rules cars and small incidental transport around the place, and we use our cars for that sort of thing. So you might have a car crash. Hopefully it's not a physically detrimental car crash, but you might total the front end of your car or something. Well, the insurance company pays out you a payment, or your car's a write-off, and you get a whole new car out of it. So there is big picture benefit that can come from that particular frustrating incident. Or even, if you're able to get your car repaired, it doesn't get you a whole new car. It might make you, in the big picture, more cautious, a much more careful driver, more conscientious as a driver, and maybe that needed to happen. Maybe that's something that Mercury was trying to draw your attention to and make you address your driving habits. Big picture is a very, very helpful perspective to take things from. You might sign a contract during Mercury retrograde. Maybe you decide during a Mercury retrograde, right, let's establish a new business. And this is just an interesting tidbit. If you've been working towards launching a new business before Mercury retrograde, if you've been sort of doing bits and pieces and it's setting up your marketing and developing a website and doing all different things prior to Mercury retrograde, well, the actual retrograde period is not necessarily detrimental for that piece, because it's been going on and being established and being set up prior to the retrograde period, just so you know. But if you get all this, like an idea for a new website, a new business, and you set it all up and establish it within Mercury retrograde, well, the old idea here is that it's not going to succeed, because it's all happened in Mercury retrograde and the energy is a bit unfamiliar, and you won't be able to make it work, is the general idea behind why Mercury retrograde is frustrating for people. But let's just use that example. If you set up a new business during Mercury retrograde and it ends up not working out, well, maybe the benefit is that you really weren't meant to have that as a business. Maybe that wasn't part of your destiny. Maybe that wasn't part of what the greater universe desires for you to be bringing to the world. And so you leave that, that failed business behind, or that failed contractual arrangement or whatever behind, and you move into something else that maybe is far more beneficial and far more in line with your destiny and really truly what you are on a path to do. So I hope you're getting the idea here. The shamanic and evolutionary astrology perspective is that Mercury retrograde is not bad, we actually need to live our lives to the fullest, not put them on hold when Mercury goes retrograde, saying, I just got to wait, and then I'll do it. Come 18th of April, then I'll be able to do X, Y, Z. We need to live our lives, not put them on hold, waiting. Yes, there might be some upheavals that happen during Mercury retrograde, but who's to say? Who are we as human beings to say that they're not for our highest good? They're not for our greatest benefit. Yes, it was unfortunate that I took my computer to the repair shop and it was destroyed, but it wasn't for good, and the ultimate result of that was beneficial for me and beneficial for everybody who views my videos. So much better. So who are we to judge that a headache that occurs during Mercury retrograde may not be the universe's way of calling our attention to something that needs addressing in order to make our lives ultimately better. So it's my belief that we need to not be so controlling. You know, we need to trust that the universe is working in our favor. Listen to our intuition, like, and our gut guidance, you know, and tune into the divine, to the angelic realms. What do I really feel here about doing X, Y, and Z? What's my gut telling me? That's a far better guide for our lives than saying, what's Mercury doing right now? Oh, he's retrograde. Okay, well, I can't do X, Y, Z. You know, tune into what your higher self is saying. You might think, oh, you know, I want to launch this website, and you get goosebumps. That's, to me, a far better guide for what you should do. If you get goosebumps over something, that's the universe telling you, yeah, this is on the money. Run with this. You are on the right path. Similarly, if your tummy turns in knots, and you just think, oh, yuck, at the idea of applying for a particular job, and you just think, ugh, then don't apply. That's your higher self, your connection to the divine through your physical body telling you, not for you. Then we need to pay attention to these things. And this is particularly important because the 29th degree, the Anaretic degree, is a fated degree. So when we've got a Mercury turning retrograde on a fated degree, we need to trust that fate's got the best interests of our lives in mind. So, you know, through trying to control our lives to the nth degree, we might be delaying the life lessons that we need to learn and that the universe is trying to teach us. Ultimately, we may end up having to learn those lessons down the track further on in more difficult ways, because we haven't allowed in, through trying to control our lives, we haven't allowed in the little lessons that the universe wants to teach us on the way. So it says, righto, you're not wanting to learn those little incidental lessons in the progress of your life. Have a big whammy lesson instead, and maybe you'll get the picture then. I know what I'd rather deal with. Lots of little headaches rather than a big hell on earth experience. So I hope that takes some heaviness off the Mercury retrograde idea for you. It's nothing to fear. We actually really, the lesson with Mercury retrograde is to learn to be more adaptable, more flexible, and to roll with the punches, trusting that the universe has our back, and that ultimately, in the big picture, it is going to serve our highest good. If we can do that, we're ready for anything. We're at a higher level. We're functioning at a higher level and able to take on new lessons and new understandings and new wisdom. So live your life, make your plans, let life teach you, let life grow you. Let life even love you in, odd ways, a bit like a parent who sort of, what was that old song in the 80s? You've got to be cruel to be kind. I mean, I'm a parent, we restrict our children from doing certain things, or sometimes we even let them make the mistakes they need to make in order to learn a lesson. So it's part of the universe parenting us, really, in a way, in a way that's actually quite loving, to help us grow and mature and wise up. So, if you, just checking my notes, if you want to not sign a contract or not start a business or not, take your computer to the repair shop during that time, that's fine. Go right ahead and do that. But I just want to encourage people, please don't live your life in fear. And that's very religious, to live your life in fear. Don't live your life in fear of Mercury retrograde. We are all evolving through this incarnation, and it's a means of spiritual growth that we sometimes go through upheavals. So live your life and find joy even in the midst of all the Mercury retrograde headaches. That would be my advice. Take it or leave it. I'm not going to force anyone to align to my worldview. So at 29 degrees Pisces, Mercury is telling us that we need to go over some area of our life. We need to readdress it. We need to make sure that we have integrated the lessons fully. So especially on a mental level, Mercury is a mental planet. If it was Venus, we might need to be reintegrating the lessons at a heart level, at a feeling level, at a at a loving level. But with Mercury, it's all up here. So we need to, our beliefs, our understandings, our knowledge needs to be readdressed regarding certain areas of our life. Because Mercury is the planet of the mind, and we're about to go through a major transition mentally when Mercury leaves the sign of Pisces, where he's going to be retrograding on the 18th of April, and he moves into Aries, and that's a major transition because he's not only coming out of his retrograde shadow period, but he'll be coming into a whole new sojourn around the horoscope by moving to the 1st degree of Aries. So we need to do this. He's calling us. Mercury is saying, right, we need to readdress a couple more things before I move into a whole new transition period and a transformational period for you. So we need to sort out your shit before we move into this next phase of your life, this next stepping up the evolutionary ladder for you. So the general impacts, and this is for everybody, for all signs, this is the general impact of Mercury saying this is something you need to readdress. This is some area of your life you need to sort out. For all of us, this is what applies, and then we're going to go through each of the signs. So the general impact for everybody are the things that Mercury rules, like our siblings, our brothers and sisters, our neighbors, the people in our everyday reality, like the person at the grocery store that's, you know, scanning our vegetables, you know, the guy who we pay when we go in to pay for our petrol. You know, people in our everyday interactive society that we deal with, there's going to be some issues here that we need to readdress. Maybe we're not treating the checkout chick respectfully, and we need to readdress that and change our attitude towards the people we interact with on a daily basis. Maybe we need to change our attitude towards our siblings, or readdress that relationship on a mental level. There are a couple of things. We need to perhaps sort out our shit regarding our legal documentations, any contracts, any wills, any, you know, business agreements, this sort of thing that we need to go over with a fine-tooth comb right now. Mercury is saying, before we move ahead, you better go and have a look at that contract. Read the fine print, read the fine detail, dot every I, cross every T, make sure you've got it sorted, waterproof, and, you know, functional for you. We also need to sort out our shit regarding our work, our health, any of our ideas, or you know, the way we write, the way we speak. We perhaps are being called generally with Mercury here to readdress us, you know, how we talk. Maybe the universe is telling me I've got to stop swearing so much, you know, or maybe I need to perhaps I need to write in articles for my website more, or whatever it happens to be. You know, Mercury is saying, right, we need to address something that's really not working for you. Mercury rules advertising and marketing. Maybe you've been trying to promote your business through Instagram or, you know, Facebook or something, and it's just a waste of time, and you're being frustrated and nobody's looking at it, and you're like, okay, we need to readdress this. If I'm to move forward with this business that I've got, this means of marketing and promotion is just not cutting it. I've got to change things up. I need to readdress it. So this is the kind of general things that Mercury is causing us to readdress during this retrograde period, before we can transition, before we can move into the new realm after the 18th of April. So that said, let me get my extra notes. We're going to go through each of the signs, and guess what? We're starting with Pisces again. My apologies to Aries. It's probably, this is very judgmental of me, isn't it? But I was going to say it's probably not a bad thing for Aries people to learn to wait. Sorry. So for Pisces people, we might be feeling indecisive or bored or frustrated in the following areas of our life, or even that there might be a sense of urgency and a need for change in these areas. Mercury is going to be asking us to readdress realms to make sure we are mentally on solid ground in preparation for the major transition on the 18th of April, and that's going to shift us to another level, and this final piece of sorting out that must be done before up leveling needs to be done in the following areas. For Pisces, it's in the first house, so this is all about you, all you beautiful Piscean people with Pisces rising, or sun and moon if you want to go down that road. How are you surviving your life right now? You know, are you craving change in perhaps how you make ends meet, how you survive and thrive? How are you physically showing up in the world? Are you, you know, are you eager to get up in the morning and be present in the world and participate in society? And, you know, your body and soul journey is seen by the first house. So you're going to need to undertake some mental readjustment in this area, how you're surviving and thriving, how you show up in the world, how you are present in the world, you need to readdress that in order to be able to move forward after the 18th of April. So, you know, ask yourself these questions. Are you happy with how you're surviving? Are you happy with how you are currently getting by in life? Are you happy with how you're making ends meet? Are you happy with what you're doing and how you're showing up and being present in the world? Are you happy with your body and your appearance? Are you happy with your physical health? Well, what do you need to readdress on a mental level now in order to make changes where you're not happy? Mercury for Pisces people also rules Gemini, their 4th house, and Virgo, their 7th house. So there is going to be an influence in those realms as well. And this will be, firstly, with the 4th house, issues concerning relationships with mother figures. Also past life conditioning or early childhood conditioning that you're going to need to mentally readdress. You know, do I still align with that shit, or am I now free? You know, do I need to readdress my old belief systems that came from my community or my society that I grew up in, the family dynamics that I had, the heritage and the lineage, and this can be genetic and ancestral, or it can be even karmic lineage, as well as your physical home. You're going to, all these areas of life, maybe one, maybe all, maybe a couple, might need some attention on a mental and attitudinal level. You might need to take some time to reflect and readjust your mental attitude to all these things. Now, in the 7th house, Mercury rules issues concerning your committed relationships. So business partnerships, marriage, even general relationships can be seen by the 7th house, because for Pisces, the first house, that's them, that's how they survive and thrive, that's how they go through life. It's you, the first house. 7th house is the others on the other side. You know, it's furthest from the first house, so it's about the other people, other relationships in general. So, you know, the significant others in your world and in your life might need a bit of mental attention before any change can come. So in this case, you know, you might need to mentally address what's going on in your marriage and your relationship before you're ready to move on. Now, legal matters as well as cultural involvements are also important in the 7th house. So you might need to mentally address, you know, you go over intellectually any legal situations that you're in. Also, I'm facing a court case at the moment, so that's something that I need to address, and I'm a Pisces rising, so this is very pertinent to me, and I need to make sure I've got all my I's dotted and T's crossed, ready for that. Plus any cultural involvements as well can be seen by the 7th house. It's ruled by the sign of Libra by association, and Libra is very sophisticated and cultural. It's not standing down at the local music festival with a beer in your hand going, yeah. It's much more refined, sophisticated, cultural, you know, going to an art gallery or sitting in a concert hall listening to music, or, you know, that sort of thing. So there might be something to do with those sorts of realms, cultural realms, that you might need to mentally in some way or another address in the coming Mercury retrograde period. So next, Aquarius rising people. So I'm a bit quirky and I like to go backwards. Aquarius, for Aquarius rising people, well, you might be feeling indecisive or bored or frustrated with the following areas of your life that we're going to talk about here. Even a sense of, you know, I urgently need to change something in these realms, in this area of life. I need to shake things up. Mercury's asking you to readdress issues in the 3 houses I'm going to talk about to make sure you're mentally on solid ground in preparation for the major life transition that's coming on the 18th of April. And this is the final piece of sorting out that needs to be done before you can up level to the next level of understanding in the following areas. And for you, Aquarius, it's in your 2nd house. This is where Mercury's sitting. So you are being asked to, you know, mentally readdress your resources. Do you have enough resources to feel comfortable in life? Are you making enough money? Are things okay with your resources right now? What do you need to readdress with regard to your mental attitude towards your resources? Do you value what you have, or are you sort of a bit flippant with it? Do you need to readdress a mental attitude and a way of thinking about your possessions, your income, your money, your car, your clothes, your home, your food, Anything that you that supports your body's journey through life, second house supports the first. Anything you have that supports your body's journey through life, you need to mentally readdress how you're dealing with it, how you're functioning with those things, and your attitude towards it. Do your possessions own you, or do you own them, you know? So Mercury's saying, let's sort this shit out before we move to the next level. Let's make sure we're in a good place mentally, with our attitudes, with our understanding of what's going on with our resources, and also our sense of self-worth and self-value too. Mercury also for Aquarius rising people rules their 5th house, Gemini, and their 8th house, Virgo. So these are 2 areas of life that are also going to be affected by this particular retrograde period. In this case, Mercury rules the 5th house of love, romance, pleasure, fun, joy, where you get your happiness from, and children. So, you know, you are going to be addressing issues in those realms concerning all those things. And you might need to pay more attention to those things in some sort of way on a mental and attitudinal level to help you be ready to move on. So you might need to readdress your love life. You might need to look at your life and say, okay, well, I'm just not happy. No, I just feel like I can't be happy anymore. What's going on here? 5th house is happiness. And so Mercury says, right, well, let's sort this out. Let's you know, go through this and find out what's going on here so that you're ready to step into a new era and find your happiness and find your joy again. So that's 5th house things. 7th house things for these guys, for Aquarius rising, is issues concerning, sorry, not 7th house, 8th house things. This is issues around other people's money. You know, you're going to be forced to readdress, am I managing other people's money wisely? Maybe you are a guarantor for someone, or maybe you are a share person, someone who deals in shares for other people every day, or an accountant, or maybe you're dealing with a will, you know, you're the executor of a particular will or something like that, and you are going to need to really address issues regarding your management or your association with other people's money and resources. You know, this 2nd house from the 1st is your resources. 2nd house from the 7th house of partner, other people, is other people's resources. So you're going to need to address something in that area before change is going to be ready to come into your life. So it'll be money, maybe it's also your attitude to hidden mysteries of the universe. This is ruled by the 8th house. The hidden mysteries, the hidden realms, the divine, well, not so much divine knowledge, but sort of understanding of hidden things. Maybe you've had a bad attitude about it. Maybe you've been like, don't believe in reincarnation, that's all, past life regression's a whole load of rubbish. And maybe Mercury's saying, well, hang on, before you're ready to go into the next level, maybe we need to look at this. Maybe you need to actually experience something before you can make a judgment call on it without having understood what's energy healing really all about. And that's ruled by the 8th house. You know, what's astrology all about? What's metaphysics all about? Before I go making a big attitudinal judgment on these things, maybe I need to experience it. So you're being called to readdress your attitude to these things and your understanding of these things, your wisdom and your knowledge, the way you've learnt about these things as well. Might all need to shift and change with a Mercury retrograde for Aquarius rising people. And so the next sign is Capricorn. Capricorn rising people will see this play out in their mainly in their 3rd house, because this is where we've got all the action. So the 3rd house is going to be asking Capricorn rising people, you know, you might be feeling bored, indecisive, frustrated with the 3rd house things in life, or even a sense of an urgent need for change in that area of your life. And Mercury will be asking you to readdress this realm to make sure you're mentally on solid ground. I'm going through this intro with every sign, in preparation for the major life transition that's going to shift you to another level on April 18th when he leaves this retrograde period. This is the final piece of sorting out that needs to be done before you can up level in the realm of 3rd house things if you're Capricorn rising. So your communication, are you communicating your true feelings? Are you being authentic and honest about what you communicate? Are you approaching your communication with intelligence and wisdom and integrity? Maybe, you know, maybe you're a journalist and what you're writing about, is it really integrous? And Mercury says, I think we need to readdress this. Are you got all your facts straight? Are you actually, you know, speaking the truth, or are you just padding things out with some sort of BS? So this is something Mercury's going to make you call your attention to during this time. How are you communicating? Maybe you've been hanging out for a publishing deal, or maybe you've been waiting for a speaking gig with TED Talks or something like that, and you know, it's been held up or postponed and delayed, and you're frustrated. Oh, come on. Well, Mercury might be saying, come on, make sure that you know what you're going to be talking about. Make sure that your manuscript is really on the money, because we're not going to send it into this publisher if there's holes in it. And TED Talks are never going to accept you as a speaker if you really don't know your shit. So time for you guys, Capricorn rising people, to really dot your I's and cross your T's about speaking and communicating, teaching, sharing of knowledge. Small business practices are also seen by the third house before you're going to be ready to move forward. And of course, Mercury rules for Capricorn rising people their 6th house and then 9th house, and so these are areas as well that are going to need some attention during this Mercury retrograde time. 6th house is your health, your work life, your daily life, what you do to earn a buck and pay the bills. Not so much the legacy you want to leave the world, but more like, you know, working at Macca's, or, you know, whatever you do to pay the bills, is seen by the 6th house. Also, your relationship with people who are in lower places than you in our society. Yep, we don't have a caste system in the Western world, thank God, but we still do have, you know, employers and employees. We still do have, you know, a sort of a hierarchy, if you like, of people working in, you know, there's a doctor up here, and then there's the cleaner down there. You know, we've got a hierarchy in our work systems, unfortunately, but it's just the way it is. So that we have this going on, and your relationship with people who are at a lower level, if you like, than you, who are not as well educated as you, who are not, you know, who don't have as much life experience of you or understanding with you, that's going to need to be readdressed if you're Capricorn rising. How are you relating to people who are less educated than you? How are you relating to people who are employed by you? You know, you're going to be called to readdress these things, as well as your own health. Your health is seen by the 6th house, and so, you know, are you taking care of your health? Are you looking after your body? Are you making wise choices right now? You're going to need to address this at a mental level, and your attitude to your health as well, because Mercury is mental and attitudinal. It's not about physical enactment, that's Mars. Mercury is about, okay, am I eating as healthy as I should? Do I exercise enough? And it's a reviewing of, okay, mentally, am I on the right path here regarding 6th house things? And of course, the same thing applies for 9th house things. 9th house things, you might want to question yourself and reflect on this. Are your relationships with inspirational figures really serving you well? Have you sorted out, you know, your relationship with gurus and mentors and people who inspire you? Is there anything you need to address in your relationships with such people? Maybe you're an inspirational figure yourself. Well, maybe you need to readdress, what's your integrity like here? Are you doing things for the right motives? Mercury calls you to assess your attitudes, assess your approach, assess your the reasons why you do things, you know, your motives, particularly in the 9th house, because it's all about our spiritual beliefs and our philosophies. So you might need to examine your philosophical stance right now. You know, okay, I'm a practicing astrologer. Why am I really doing this? Am I doing it to help people, or am I doing it to make myself look good? You need to really you get down to the nitty gritty of, well, you know, what's my philosophy here? What's my belief here? If I am an inspirational figure, or if I am serving people in some way, because Virgo in this case is connected to service for anybody who's Capricorn rising. So 9th house inspiration will come through service for Capricorn rising people, but that's another topic. So really, what needs attention in a 9th house realm before things can change with an up level when Mercury comes out of its retrograde period? You might need to go and immerse yourself in a bit of culture, like other cultures, you know, go to an Ethiopian restaurant, or go and go to I don't know, some sort of a Chinese celebratory festival or something like that. Go and immerse yourself in other cultures to be able to understand and I guess know where you stand on a cultural and philosophical level. So it's a really good time to go and enjoy those kinds of activities if you are a Capricorn rising person, because you'll get a lot of wisdom out of that, and Mercury will teach you a lot during this retrograde period by stepping into those cultural realms, and also understanding religious and faith systems as well. You'll come to a better mental conclusion about your own stance in life during this retrograde period. It's a great time for inner work, actually, Mercury retrograde in general. So next we've got Sagittarius rising. Yes, Sagittarius always likes to go for a walk. Interestingly enough, that's true in real life and true with my board. It never stays still when I'm in Sagittarius. It's just playing out the energy of its name. Sagittarius there. So this is going to put the energy of Mercury retrograde most significantly in the 4th house. So you might be feeling bored or frustrated at the moment with 4th house areas of your life, or even a sense of urgently needing to change this area of your life in order to be able to move forward. You know, Mercury for Sag rising people is asking you to readdress these realms, making sure that you are mentally on some sort of solid ground before he comes out of retrograde period on the 18th of April. So this is the final piece of sorting out that needs to be done before up-leveling in the area of mostly the 4th house for you. So 4th house is the relationship that you have, if you're Sagittarius rising, with your mother, with maternal figures, with your roots, your country of origin, your community of origin, where you grew up, your home, your family life. You're going to need to readdress these things, your heritage and your lineage, as well as your physical home, the place where you live, might need some, you know, consideration. Okay, well, look, really, we need another bedroom. So how are we going to do this? And you might start to mentally assess and plan in that area of life. It's going to need some attention on a mental level. It's not time to go and grab the hammer and start, you know, or the sledgehammer and knock down some walls. It's a time for assessing on a mental level all these components that I've mentioned before you're going to be ready to move ahead on April the 18th. Now, Mercury for Sag rising people also rules their 7th house, Gemini, and their 10th house, so 2 angular houses, very, very important, in 10th house Virgo. So when we're talking about the influence on the 7th house in this case, issues concerning your relationships, your business partnerships, how you get along with others, generally speaking, you know, significant people in your life. We also mentioned this a little bit earlier when we were talking about Pisces. But one of the issues will be, you know, how you are involved in legal matters will need some readdressing, going through things with a fine-tooth comb legally. You'll also need to mentally readdress perhaps any cultural practices that you're a part of or that you enjoy, you know. But you're going to need to give them some attention before any change can come on the 18th of April. It's a really good time for going through those sorts of things. Also, the 10th house is a house of the legacy you hope to leave the world, the career and social achievements you long for, and the social status that you desire. So when this is being triggered by the associated Mercury retrograde, you're going to need to focus mentally on your career, on these things. So let's say you aspire to be a famous singer and produce an album, and you want to be the next Lady Gaga or something. And so you're going to mentally need to prepare to focus on your attitude. Why am I doing this? What is my intention with leaving this legacy? Maybe you might need to start writing some songs, you know, doing some of the legwork, you know, mentally and intellectually, and with your communication skills, Mercury, start to really flesh out what the structure of this album that you want to produce is going to be like. And you might, like, you know, spend some time, I don't know, go to a cafe, grab a nice cup of coffee or something and sit and brainstorm ideas for songs that you could write about, or you know, the theme of your album, the tone of your album. You know, it's a really good time for planning the legacy that you want to leave and addressing it on a mental level before you're going to be ready to move ahead with it after the 18th of April. So that's for you Sag rising people. Scorpio rising people, well, let's see if you'll sit still for me. No, you're going to have a bit of a wander as well. Well, this is going to, if you're Scorpio rising, you might be feeling a bit indecisive, a bit bored, a bit frustrated with these following areas of life. You know, even a sense of urgent need to change something, to shake things up a bit. Mercury's asking you to readdress these realms to make sure that you're mentally on solid ground, Scorpio, in readiness for when the shift comes and he moves out of retrograde zone on the 18th of April. This is the final piece of sorting out that you need to do before up leveling into the new realm, the Aries realm. So it's going to happen in your 5th house. So you need to mentally readdress, okay, what's my attitude to love? How am I relating to my children? Where do I get my joy from and my happiness from? Am I creatively expressing myself in the way that really aligns with who I am? So you're going to be assessing that, you're going to be thinking about that. You're going to, maybe you need to go brainstorm about ways that you can creatively express yourself at a higher level. You know, you might have been doing things a certain way for a long time, and now Mercury goes retrograde and says, come on, we can't up level until you've sorted out how you are expressing your creativity and individuality in the world. We really need to address this. Or maybe you're in a love relationship and it's going like rubbish, and Mercury says, I think you need to readdress your love style, you know, the way you're communicating in your relationship here with your boyfriend or your girlfriend. Are you being integrous about it? And Mercury's making you really do some assessment about the communication in your relationship or the communication with your children. Maybe he's saying to you, you know what, we really need to work on this dynamic that we've got with the children, because, you know, they're off playing Fortnite all day long, and you know you're off reading X, Y, and Z for work and things, and there's really not enough communication going on between you and your children. And Mercury says, come on, let's get it together. Let's mentally shift this attitude and this relationship communicatively. So this is part of what, for Scorpio rising people, this retrograde period might be calling you to address. Mercury for Scorpio rising people rules your 8th house and your 11th house, and yeah, and so there's going to be a more minor influence, but an influence nonetheless in areas to do with your management of other people's money, the way you are, you know, any legal wills, any inheritances, any superannuation funds. You need to go over those sorts of things with a fine-tooth comb. Make sure everything is watertight at this time during Mercury retrograde, because Mercury retrograde is calling you Scorpio people to make sure everything regarding other people's money and inheritances and so forth is in place and functioning as it should, and set up as it should be. So it's a good opportune time to readdress those things. It's also an opportune time to readdress how you might, what attitudes you have to the hidden mysteries of life, you know, to the hidden realms, to your understanding of esoteric practices or metaphysics. You know, ask yourself, well, am I judgmental of these things that I've maybe never tried, never experienced? Do I need to shift my attitude by going and having a past life regression, or going and getting you know, a book about metaphysics and actually understanding what it's all about, instead of going scoff, scoff, scoff? You know, maybe it's a time for really readjusting your mental attitude to certain areas of life that are alternative and a bit left of center, as seen by the 8th house. Maybe you need to readjust your attitude to sex. I've got to mention this when I was talking before about Aquarius rising people, for Aquarius rising people, but it is very pertinent. This is the house of sex, so your attitude to sex might need some reassessing. You might need to go and do some reading. Mercury's reading up on, okay, new ideas, new perspectives, new positions, new all the rest of it, and really approach things with a different perspective before you're ready to up level and move on to the new transitional phase. So Mercury's calling you to pay attention to that area of your life. Also, Mercury is calling you to pay attention to your 11th house because he rules Virgo. So in this instance, we've got an emphasis mentally being put on, you know, receiving rewards and accolades and honors, your relationship with groups of people that need some readdressing, that needs some, you know, your attitude might need to change. Maybe, you know, you think you're going to be king of the group, and Mercury says, hang on, let's readdress this attitude because I don't think it's the right. I don't think you're coming at things from an appropriately integrous motivation here. So, you know, he's calling you to, how do you relate to groups of people? What is your friendship circle like? Are there any issues that need sorting out before you're ready to up level? You know, you've been putting in hard work in a certain area of life. Are you going to receive the rewards that you expect? You know, you might need to get a bit realistic about these things and assess, okay, so I've been working really hard and I'm expecting a promotion. Well, have I really done what I need to do to be worthy of this promotion? This is 11th house, is promotions, rewards, honors, gains. So Mercury, as ruler of the 11th house for Scorpio rising people, is saying, have I done the work? Let's reassess things. Let's go over it all. Have I really done what I need to do? If not, now's the time to do it, to make it right, to sort of tweak anything that needs tweaking so I'm worthy of a promotion, so I'm worthy of that honor, so I'm worthy of winning that award or whatever it happens to be. Okay, so the next sign, Libra. Libra rising people, well, you might be feeling indecisive or bored or frustrated with the following areas of your life, or even a sense of an urgent need to change the following areas of your life. Mercury is going to be asking you, Libran people, to readdress a particular realm that we'll talk about in just a second, to make sure that you are mentally on solid ground in readiness for the transition that's going to occur on the 18th of April when he moves into Aries and leaves retrograde behind. This is the final piece of sorting out that must be done before up leveling into the following area. And for Libra rising people, well, this is falling in their 6th house. So this is the main area of focus for this retrograde period. And it's going to mean that you're going to need to address your mental attitude and your approach to issues that are 6th house. And so this is things like your work, how you earn a buck, how you relate to people who are lower than you on the social order of things in our Western society. So your employees, it might be pertaining to you know, how you relate to the person who comes and cleans your home for you, or the person at the checkout, you know, people who are serving you basically in our Western society. So you're going to need to readdress your mental attitude to these people. And are you functioning in a healthy way with these people? If you're Libra rising, you probably are, because you're very kind and loving to others, but it's still going to be an area where there might be some issues that come up that you need to address. Also, your health might be something that you mentally need to refocus on right now. If you are Libra rising, you might need to, well, I have Libra moon, so I am actually going to be, so this does apply to me. Like I said, you can assess your sun and your moon as well. Libra moon, I'm going to be going and revisiting a specialist that I see annually during the period of Mercury retrograde. So it's a period of readdressing. Okay, how am I doing? How am I doing with my health? Am I dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's with regard to my health regime and the things that I need to do to maintain my level of well-being? So you're going to be asked by Mercury during this time, let's readdress things. Let's make sure everything's in order. Let's make sure we're doing it the way we should be. And you'll be thinking a lot more about health and well-being during this retrograde period, as well as your daily work life and your relationship to animals and people who are in more, let's call it more lowly positions or uneducated positions or poorer or that sort of thing in our society. But also Mercury for Libra rising people rules your 9th house and your 12th house. So in this case, there's going to be a smaller emphasis for you guys on the 9th house. You're going to need to, you might need to pay some attention on a mental and attitudinal level to inspirational figures in your life. Do you have an integrous relationship with your mentors? Are you being a good mentor to people? Mercury might be saying, I think you need to readdress the way you're relating to, let's say, your students or the people who look to you for advice and wisdom. Time to readdress that. Are you really teaching them wisely? Are you really sharing from an appropriate motivational perspective? Mercury's going to ask you to readdress your relationship with culture as well, other cultures. So not cultural like, you know, going to see a concert at the concert hall, but culture as in, you know, how do I get along with my Italian neighbors next door? Do I participate in their culture? Am I being someone who can learn from other cultures and other belief systems? Mercury is going to make you address where maybe you're falling down in a certain area, and maybe you're not haven't got the right attitude or the right mental approach. Mercury might say, okay, you know, you've been a bit judgmental about certain things, and now it's time to let go of those. Particularly, it's a house of belief, so you might need to learn to let go of some beliefs that are not serving you during Mercury retrograde in order to allow yourself to move forward when Mercury comes out of retrograde on the 18th of April. And also Mercury rules for you guys your 12th house as well. And again, this is a house connected to spiritual beliefs, so definitely a big emphasis on that for you. You're going to need to address your spirituality. You know, am I being authentic? Am I being true? Are my beliefs well founded on knowledge and understanding and wisdom? Mercury is going to make you say, okay, have I done enough reading about this? Do I really truly know what I'm all about here spiritually? And you'll need to readdress before you're ready to move forward these areas. Also, the 12th house is holidays and escaping and, you know, having a break. So maybe Mercury might be saying, I think you need to take some time out. I think you need to have a break, Libra rising people, to be able to go deep and go within and sort out, well, who are you really, and what's really going on here in your life. Sometimes it's really, really healthy to have a holiday, and Mercury, as ruler of your 12th house going retrograde, might be saying time to go within, time to take a break, time to reassess. So escaping during this time, depending what else is going on in your chart, but having a small holiday like a weekend break or going to a day spa or something might be really good for Libra rising people over the coming month or so. Also, the 12th house is connected to past life karma. When you've got Mercury going retrograde at Gandanta degrees and the 12th house is involved in this, there's going to be some karmic shift for you guys. There's going to be some big karma being sorted out. So you might find that after this retrograde period, you are lighter, you are freer, you are reborn. You know, you have transitioned into a whole other level through your mental processes, through looking at your life, stepping back, maybe journaling, maybe doing some kind of a process work or something that involves using your mind, you know, writing things out, writing a story that's a part of your purging of anything that might be karmic related. You might not even know that it's karmic related, but if you are feeling called to write and journal or even document something through some sort of communicative efforts like a blog or, you know, or a website or something, and you're documenting part of your journey, it actually can prove to be part of a purging for you at a karmic level that it's going to leave you feeling, when Mercury transitions to Aries, lighter, freer, more empowered. Very, very karmic to have Mercury retrograding at the Gandanta degrees and ruling your 12th house. Libra people, Libra rising, to a lesser extent Libra moon and Libra sun as well, you are about to seriously transition and up level through this experience right now. So that's something to look forward to. Don't be afraid of that. You're really going to be helped and supported by the universe in purging some karma that needs to go. So moving right along, Virgo rising people. I'm gonna have my throat's a bit dry because I'm still dealing with a bit of a cold. Have a sip of my now cold coffee. Okay, Virgo rising people. This energy, so you might be feeling somewhat indecisive, a bit bored, a bit frustrated with the following areas of life that I'm going to talk about, and even a sense of an urgent need for change in these areas. Mercury is going to be asking you to readdress these 3 areas of life that we're going to talk about to make sure you are mentally on solid ground in readiness for the major transition that's going to occur when he moves into Aries on the 18th of April. And this is the final piece of sorting out that needs to be done for you before you're ready to progress and move forward. And for you guys, it's occurring in Pisces, which is your 7th house. So you're going to need to address, you know, how are your committed relationships? Are you being, you know, communicating appropriately in your committed partnerships and your marriage partnerships mainly, and your business partnerships as well, but any other significant others in your life, you know, can also be seen. This is a house of relationship with others generally. Its first house is you, seventh house is the furthest away from you, so it's about other people in general. So how are you relating to others right now? Is there a fractious environment that needs addressing at home, you know, in your marriage relationship? So Mercury goes retrograde and says, come on guys, sort out your issues, let's talk it out, let's speak, let's communicate, let's sort out the problems. So it's a time for asking questions. How are you communicating with your partner, your business partner or your marriage partner or any other significant other? Are you are you sharing what's on your heart? Are you being forthright and honest, or are you being the martyr and saying, you know, I'll just put up with it, you know? Well, Mercury's saying, no. This is a time for speaking. Mercury is speaking. Mercury is communicating. This is a time for, you know, looking at the issues, looking at the problems, sharing them, talking them out, communicating about them. It's before you're ready to move onward and upward. So definitely this is an area of importance for you guys. Also Mercury for Virgo rising people rules the 10th house and obviously the first house. So with regard to the 10th house, you are being asked to really pay attention on a mental and attitude level to the legacy you're hoping to leave the world and how you want to shine in the world. This is the 10th house, Gemini. How we shine, how we show up in the world, how the world, you know, what legacy we leave the world, and how visible we are in the world. And Mercury going retrograde saying, okay, let's look at this. Have we done enough work? Just say we want to be, I don't know, maybe we've got aspirations to be some sort of a crime writer or something like that, and we want to write books about criminology. And Mercury says, okay, so you want to this is the legacy you want to leave. You want to be like the next Agatha Christie or something. So let's go over this manuscript you've prepared. Let's make sure that everything connects as it should. Let's really look at the structure of this story. Is it really going to work? And then we might need to look at any contracts with publishing companies. Is it going to be watertight? Am I going to get what I deserve from this? Is it going to be, fulfill what I need fulfilled in my life to be doing this? Mercury is going to make you readdress anything to do with the 10th house. It's a very important time for dotting the I's and crossing the T's for Virgo rising people regarding career and your worldly aspirations. Also first house. So you want to also ask yourself right now, how are you surviving in life? Are you feeling bored with what you're doing to survive? Are you feeling indecisive about how you're making ends meet? Are you feeling frustrated even with the current life situation that you're in? You want to shake things up a bit. Are you craving change in how you're making ends meet or how you're physically showing up and participating in the world at large? This is, first house is your body and soul journey. And so, you know, the body and soul journey that you're undertaking might need a bit of mental adjustment right now in readiness for being able to move forward after April 18th. So it's a good time for reassessing your whole life. Are you in the right place? Are you doing what you love? Are you being true to yourself? You're going to be called to ask all these questions over this Mercury retrograde period. It's a good time to perhaps do some Mercury-like journaling and listing and writing down ideas and getting it all out of your head. Virgo people need to get things out of their head and on paper to help support their mental well-being. So I'd encourage you Virgo rising people to do that. Alrighty, moving along now. We're halfway through. Leo rising. Ta-da. Leo rising people. So Leo rising people might be feeling a little bit indecisive, a little bit bored, a little bit frustrated with the following areas that we're going to discuss. There might be a sense of an urgent need to make change. Mercury is going to ask you, Leo rising people, to readdress these realms to make sure that you are mentally on solid ground in readiness for the transition that's going to occur on the 18th of April when Mercury leaves its shadow period. And this is the final piece of sorting out that needs to be done before you're ready to up level in these realms we're going to talk about. And for you guys, it's happening in your 8th house. This is the main area of emphasis where Mercury is retrograding. This is Pisces is your 8th house. So here you want to ask yourself questions like, well, how am I managing other people's resources? You know, do I know the details of mum and dad's will? Have I sorted out any particular superannuation payouts or insurance situations that I've got? You know, if something was to go wrong in my life, are things watertight? Are we covered for all we need to be covered? You really, it's a very important time for you to readdress those sorts of things. Make sure everything is as it should be regarding community property, other people's money, or potential payouts that you may receive. Very, very important time to address those sorts of things. It's also an important time to address your sex life as well. You know, to perhaps look into, you know, Mercury's calling you to readdress your attitude to sex. You know, are you bored with your current sex life? Does it need a bit of spicing up? What can you do about that? Before you're ready to up level and move on in life, maybe you need to address what's not working in your sex life, and you know, maybe you need to go and do a tantra course with your partner, or maybe if you are single, maybe you need to go and I don't know, join some sort of a group where you have the potential to meet future lovers. Whatever is not working in this, you know, in the realm of, in this case, we're talking about sex. I mean, obviously you want a relation, well, maybe you don't want a relationship too. If you are single, maybe you just want the sex. But whatever is not working is going to need to be readdressed regarding your sexuality and your happiness sexually. Also, so with finances, other people's finances, sexuality, and your sexual experience, and in the 8th house, it's hidden mysteries, the things that are deep within the universe. You know, maybe you've got an attitude, Leo rising people, of, oh, I just don't believe in past life regressions. I think that's for loonies, you know. But you've never actually had one to know whether it's actually real or not, or, you know, you're just making a ill-informed judgment. I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying that every Leo rising person thinks that. But then Mercury goes retrograde in your 8th house and says, come on, you need to readdress that attitude, because, you know, you have never experienced a past life regression. So how are you going to know it's true unless you actually know what you're talking about, because you've gone through it? So Mercury calls you to address mentally and attitudinally your personal relationship with the hidden realms of life, things like metaphysics, esoteric practices, alternative healing therapies, past life regression work, energy healing, astrology, tarot, all these realms. If you're Leo rising, Mercury during retrograde is going to say, let's address this attitude that's here and make sure we're integrous with it. Make sure that we are really coming at it from a well-informed, Mercury is learning, a well-understood perspective, not just, you know, some old archaic belief systems that really have no relevance anymore. And so Mercury for Leo rising people happens to rule their 11th house and their 2nd house. So these are smaller areas of influence that Mercury might be impacting for you, Leo rising people. You might notice a need to readdress, or some frustration, or maybe a sense of blockage around these areas of life. So Mercury is going to cause you, Leo rising people, to readdress how you're relating to groups of people or your groups of friends. You know, maybe, you know, you think you should be kingpin amongst your group of friends, and that everyone should come at your beck and call. When you decide, let's go to the movies, I'll decide what movie we see and you'll all just tag along with me. Maybe you need to readdress your attitude to your relationship with your friends or with groups of people, and Mercury says, you're not ready to up level until you've addressed that attitude, that mental approach to your friendships and your friendship circles and the groups that you're involved in. I've just used that as an illustration. I'm not saying that that is the case, but there will be something regarding your attitude, regarding your mental thought processes towards your friends and groups of people, that Mercury is going to call you to reassess and address before you're ready to move on and transition into the next phase of life. Also, it might be related to where you are receiving rewards and gains and accolades and honors. You know, have you done the work you need to receive that promotion? Have you, you know, entered your short story in that short story competition in order to win that prize you're aspiring to? Have you done the painting that you needed to do to enter into the Archibald Prize or whatever it happens to be? So Mercury is making sure that you've done what you need to do in order to be worthy of any rewards that you might be aspiring to. And also in the second house, this kind of ties in here, because the second house is the money that you earn, the resources that you have, the actual material possessions, and the sensual experiences of life, the things you can touch, taste, see, hear, and smell, are also being triggered through this as well. You're going to need to readdress, well, am I managing my possessions and my material acquisitions in a wise, worthwhile way? Maybe I've been buying up, my favorite artist is Shag. I love his artworks. Maybe I've been buying up a heap of Shag prints and I'm just storing them in my garage, and if we were to have a flood, then they'd all be water damaged. Mercury causes you to readdress, how are you taking care of your possessions? Really, I probably should put them on the wall, or at least put them up out of harm's way. Mercury is going to make you look at your possessions and how your relationship with them and how you're utilizing your possessions, how you're earning your money, and say, right, are we dealing with this appropriately? Yes, no, okay, well, if everything's good, we're ready to progress through up to the next transition stage. So that's the other thing you'll be called to look at if you are Leo rising. Cancer rising people, home stretch now, peeps. Cancer rising, there we are. Wants to go for a walk as well. Cancer rising people, well, for you guys, you might be feeling indecisive or bored or frustrated with the following areas we're going to talk about in life, or even a sense of an urgent need to make change in these areas. Mercury is going to be asking you to readdress these realms we're going to talk about, to make sure you're mentally on solid ground in readiness for the transition that's going to come on the 18th of April when Mercury passes out of its retrograde phase. And this is the final piece of sorting out that needs to be done before up leveling in the following areas. And for Cancer rising people, I'm going to need both hands for this, it's occurring up here in your 9th house. This is where Mercury is going to be going retrograde for you. Now this is a very lucky house. This is the house that trines your ascendant, and in Vedic astrology it's considered to be the luckiest house in the horoscope, closely followed by the 5th house. So this is an influential and beneficial house for you. Mercury retrograde is going to be causing you to think about your attitude to mentors and spiritual gurus and people who inspire you. It might even be asking you, how is your relationship with the people you inspire? Are you being integrous? Are you being honorable about what you're teaching other people, or the way you're leading other people in some way? This is a house of inspiration and inspirational figures. So with Cancer rising, if you are in a position where you are, a mentor to other people or inspiring other people in some way, Mercury says, I think you need to pay attention to what your motives are here, or let's have a look at the attitudes that you've got around this area of your life. And he's going to make sure that everything is a-okay before he moves into his new transition phase in Aries. So there's a calling from Mercury coming to going retrograde here to make you, make sure everything is as it should be regarding the people who inspire you and your ability to be an inspirational figure as well. There's also going to be emphasis on higher learning. Mercury, maybe you've aspired to get into some university course or do some night course or something, and when Mercury goes retrograde here, he's saying, right, well, is this truly what you want? Have you done all the research? Do you really want to study this? Are you really, really interested in knowing more about this particular area of life? Have you got what you need? Have you got your tools together ready to undertake this particular area of study? Maybe he's also calling you to look at travel. Maybe you've been aspiring to go for a trip somewhere, and Mercury says, well, let's check. Have you got your passport in place? Have you looked at your itinerary? Do you really know what you're getting into here? And let's cross the T's and dot the I's and make sure that everything is a-okay before you're ready to go. So that's what the main emphasis of Mercury in the 9th house for you guys is. Plus Mercury also rules Gemini and he rules Virgo. So this is your 12th house and your 3rd house. So there is a slightly less influential influence in these houses, but still you may feel it just the same because Mercury rules these areas of life. So for Cancer rising people, it's definitely around travel. Mercury is saying, okay, let's make sure that we've got all our travel plans in place, because the 12th house is overseas, trips, holidays, getting away from it all, maybe even just going to a day spa or a retreat or an ashram or something like that as well. Do you have everything in place? You know, have you got your passport? Have you sorted out the plane tickets? Is everything as it should be? Let's make sure we'll go over it so there's no mistakes to be made. It's a real time of reflection and research. Is everything okay? Plus, this is also, these two houses, both the 12th and the 9th, are spiritual houses. One's connected to religion, the other's connected to spirituality and spiritual practice. So there's a real calling here with Mercury going retrograde to examine your mental attitude to spirituality, to belief systems. You might like to do a bit of research at this time. Okay, well, this is what I've always thought regarding XYZ, and Mercury says, time to reassess that opinion, that belief. You know, I don't know that that's really where you want to be in order to be able to transition to the next phase of your life. So you might have to do a bit of research around your beliefs and actually look into things deeper. 12th house can be very much connected to, you know, going deeper with your understanding and having a more spiritual insight to things. 12th house is also connected to creativity. So Mercury going retrograde and ruling the 12th house might be calling you guys to look at your creative processes. Have you got, like you might be, and I used this illustration a little bit earlier with a different sign, but maybe you're a book illustrator and you have been waiting for the inspiration to hit you for like the next 10 books you've got to illustrate, and just nothing's coming. You know, when am I going to get the inspiration that I need? Well, Mercury going retrograde might be saying, okay, before we're ready to transition into this new phase when the inspiration will hit, maybe you need to look at what your approach is. Maybe you've always done watercolor illustrations for your picture books, and Mercury says, maybe you need to do it differently this time. Maybe you need to do charcoal drawings or something instead, and you revisit and reassess your approach. Is this going to work for this particular project? You know, creatively inspired project we're talking about here, because 12th house is creativity that's divinely inspired. And maybe during this Mercury retrograde period you get a divine inspiration to think, you know what, I might do collages now. I might make picture books that are all utilizing natural materials or something, and away you go with a whole new divinely inspired approach once Mercury goes direct again. But there's going to be a reassessing process about, well, where does my divine inspiration come from? Where does my creativity come from? And is it really where I'm at right now in my life? So a reassessing assessment period for you. Plus, the 12th house is karma. So for Cancer rising people, this is a period of releasing karma. It's very important that you allow any feelings to come up that need to come up and process them, grieve, cry, let them go, journal about them, because this is Mercury rules your 12th house. He's going retrograde, so it's going deep, it's going inside. The energy is powerful and strong when a planet is retrograde. This is at the Gandanta, whoops, get my arm around, the Gandanta degrees here of Pisces, the last degree in the horoscope. So definitely a period of very strong introspection that's going to lead to some karmic purging and releasing and letting go for Cancer rising people. So you might not even know that this is what's going on, but it may very well be the case. So it might be a good time to speak to mentors, 9th house, inspirational figures, and share what is Mercury is sharing and communicating and talking. Share what's coming up in you, the mental thought processes that may actually be a karmic loop. Gandanta degrees of Pisces may actually be a karmic loop that has replayed over and over and over again over many lifetimes, and now Mercury retrograde at Gandanta degrees, last degree of the horoscope, is saying, let's purge this, let's get it out, let's deal with it, let's change our mental attitude towards the betrayal that keeps occurring in our life, or towards the self-sabotage, or towards the you know, the constant presence of dominating female figures in our life and our relationship to them. You know, why does this keep happening to me? you will be readdressing that, and it's a good idea for Cancer rising people to do so with a mentor, because Mercury is in the sign of inspirational figures and mentors, and he rules the 12th house. So part of your purging can be through sharing with others your journey, and it's probably going to be very, very important at this time to do so in order to be able to progress and move forward at a soul level, because of the rulership of the 12th house. And also Mercury rules your 3rd house, which is about connection to siblings, neighbors, people in your everyday circles of life, you know, the mechanic who fixes your car, or the person who sells you that latest book at the bookshop, you know, the people that you interact with daily or regularly in your community environment are seen by the 3rd house. And so that issues regarding your mental attitude to these people, or your relationships with these people, the way you communicate with your brothers and sisters and so forth, they may come up over this retrograde period, and you might be called to really address those areas of life. Also, writing, speaking, publishing, any type of advertising, marketing, small business as well, are going to be areas that you might need to mentally address, because Mercury rules the 3rd house for Cancer rising people. All right, we're getting to the end now. My poor old arrow, he's a bit worn out. I think I need a new one. But Cancer rising people, not Cancer, Gemini rising people. Gemini also likes to go for a bit of a walk, just like Sagittarius does. He doesn't stay still on my chart, and he's a bit nomadic in reality as well, people who have strong Gemini in their charts. So it all ties in perfectly. Gemini people, you might be feeling a bit indecisive, a little bit bored, a little bit frustrated with the following areas of life that we're going to talk about, even a sense of an urgent need to change your life in these areas. So Mercury, through his retrograde period, is asking you to readdress these realms that I'm going to discuss, to make sure you're mentally on solid ground in preparation for the life transition that's going to occur on the 18th of April, when he passes out of his retrograde phase. And this is the final piece of sorting out that needs to be done before leveling up in the following areas, because we're moving into a whole new phase. We're leaving 29 degrees Pisces, as I discussed in the introduction. So for you Gemini rising people, well, this puts the energy in the 10th house for you. This is the main arena. And so you want to ask yourself questions such as, am I honoring myself with regard to the legacy I want to leave the world? The 10th house is our career. It's where we shine. It's also authority figures, but it's mostly, I find, the area that represents the legacy that we want to leave. Now, some people might want to leave a legacy of being CEO of a mining company. Somebody else might choose to leave a legacy of being the next Picasso. Someone else might want to leave a legacy for the world of being a really good mother. Like, it depends entirely on what your chart is saying, the legacy you want to leave the world. So 10th house here for Gemini rising people says, okay, are you doing what needs to, Mercury going retrograde here, are you doing what needs to be done regarding your career? Have you dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's? Do you have the right mental attitude? Are you approaching things logically and realistically with regard to what you want to achieve career-wise and legacy-wise? So let's say with Pisces here on the 10th house, you might have a desire to be like a fabulous musician and leave a legacy of an incredible album, you know, like, I don't know, some really fabulous album like Amy Winehouse's Back to Black or something. But Mercury going retrograde here is saying, okay, well, have you written all the songs, you know? Do you know what topics you're going to sing about? Do you know the tone that this album is going to take on? You need to do some planning. You need to do some preparation. You need to go grab a coffee at the local coffee shop and start writing lyrics, writing out, you know, your approach, looking at even the image that you want to present and the way you're going to, like, every little facet of this project that you want to achieve as part of your legacy that you're going to leave the world. You need to do the research, you need to do the preparation, you need to do the planning. Mercury's going to say, have you done it? Do you have the right attitude to this legacy? Is this just to to make, to say screw you to everyone who called you a dickhead in high school? Or is it because this is your true passion? This is what you really love and what your soul is calling you to. Look at your motivations. Are you really in the right place with this? Are you being integrous about this career aspiration that you might have? The other areas of life for Gemini rising people that are going to be influenced are obviously the first house, because Mercury rules your first house, and your fourth house because it also rules Virgo, your fourth house. So you might want to ask yourself, if you're Gemini rising, how are you surviving your life? Like, the first house is the house of survival and thrival. So are you surviving? Are you thriving? Are you craving change in how you make ends meet in life? How are you physically showing up in the world? Are you enthused about getting out of bed every day and going and doing whatever it is that you do? This is the house, the first house is the house of the body and soul journey that you are undertaking in this incarnation. And your attitude to the journey that you're taking might need some mental adjustment, an attitudinal adjustment, in order to make you ready to move forward into the next phase that you're going to transition into. So ask yourself these questions, journal about it, take some time out to meditate about it. Are you heading in the right direction that really aligns with your soul and the journey that you aspire to take? Now, just so you guys know, and I haven't mentioned this in any of the other all sign readings, but you might like to write down your intentions during this time, because Mercury's going retrograde the same day that we have a new moon, conjunct with Neptune, and we have Uranus shifting into, for you guys, your 12th house, Taurus. So it is a day of new beginnings, and when Mercury goes retrograde on the 6th of March, which may have already happened depending on what time you watch this video, but it's not too late if you want to do some intention setting, particularly because it pertains to your first house. Mercury rules your first house. It's a good time for setting intentions. This is what I want to achieve. This is how I want my life to look. Really go deep with this. What do you want your life to look like? Who do you want to be? What achievements do you want to make, particularly over the next 7 years with Mercury in your 12th house before it goes into your first house, which will be the most life transforming transit that a person can just about go through. You're heading into a very important time, Gemini rising people, so it's a really good time to look at your life and how you're thriving, how you're surviving. What's your bodily journey like? Do you want to change it? Also, it rules your 4th house, so relationships with mother figures, maternal figures, matriarchs in your community, any type of past life conditioning that you've experienced, community, family dynamics, heritage and lineage, they're also going to be addressed by this Mercury retrograde period. And even your physical home, you might start thinking about what's happening in your physical home, what needs adjusting, what needs changing. You might need to start doing some planning around that. But you're going to need to put attention in these areas I've just mentioned on a very mental and attitudinal level. This house is being affected by transit for me because I'm Pisces rising. Don't need to go into why that is, but so Mercury retrograde is affecting my 4th house, which is ruled by Gemini, and so I'm having to readdress my attitude to family, my heritage, my roots, my past life conditioning or early life conditioning, the beliefs that I have that are passed down from generations. Same goes for you Gemini rising people, because Mercury rules your 4th house as well. You are having to address your relationship to all these arenas of life, and Mercury will be saying, are you honest with this? Are you integrous with this? Have you got it going on? The relationship with your mother, is it what it needs to be? Do you need to address some things that aren't being said? Do you need to sort out some issues before you're ready to move up and onwards in life? So Mercury is calling you to pay attention to those things and to assess where you need to put your energy and your attention and your intellect even. All right, Taurus rising people, this is all occurring for you in your 11th house. So Mercury is going retrograde in your 11th house. So you might be feeling indecisive, a bit bored, a bit frustrated with the following areas of your life that we're going to talk about. You might even sense an urgent need to make some change in these areas. Mercury is going to be calling you to readdress these realms that we're going to discuss to make sure you're mentally on solid ground in preparation for this major life transition that's going to occur on the 18th of April when he leaves his retrograde phase. And this is the final piece of sorting out that needs to be done before you can up level in the following areas for you. 11th house is the realm. So 11th house is saying, okay, what is your relationship with friends and social groups and large groups of people? Do you have the right attitude with your friendship circles at the moment, you Taurus rising people? Or are you someone who goes into your friendship groups and sort of thinks, oh, look, I'll just be on the side, I won't contribute, I'll just observe, and so you aren't actively involved in your friendship circles. Maybe Mercury's saying, okay, come on, guys, you've got to be actually instigate some relationship here, ring up someone and invite them out, to go to a movie, or invite them around for a coffee. Don't just sit on the peripheral and the sidelines. Make sure you get involved with your friendship groups. Mercury, in whatever way, maybe you're too active, maybe you're the one who runs everything and people need to have their turn. In whatever way, Mercury is going to cause you to look at your attitudes and your relationships with friends and social circles, and make you say, oh, is this really satisfying you? Do you need to change anything here? Do you need to make it more authentic in your social life? Also, it's the house of rewards and gains. So Mercury during his retrograde period is saying, have you done what you need to do? Have you sorted out what needs sorting out in order to be worthy of that promotion? Or have you entered that painting in the Archibald Prize that you want to win? Have you done it? Have you made sure that you've submitted that final thesis that you needed to submit, and that everything is like schmick and bang on and really what you need to do, so that you can get the honors, the degree, the reward that is coming to you for the work you've done. Mercury is going to make you reassess this and make sure that you've done it to the best of your ability, and that you've got the right mental approach to these areas as well. So they're the two main arenas where Mercury is going to be working for you. I would just be careful if you're Taurus rising as well, because the 11th house is connected to electronics. It's ruled by the planet Uranus, the 11th house, and but there's a connection to Mercury as well, being that Mercury is the lower octave of Uranus, and when he's retrograde there can be issues with computers and electronic equipment. So for you guys, just be careful. If something happens, roll with the punches, but yeah, make sure that you are really taking care of your electrical devices and your electrical equipment during this time. Then we have Mercury for Taurus rising people ruling the 2nd house and the 5th house. So when Mercury is the ruler of the 2nd house, Gemini in this case here, what he's calling you to address is how you manage your resources. He's going to say, over the next month or so, have you got good systems in place regarding your resources? Are you managing your possessions and your material goods in a way that's really worthwhile? Now, I used this illustration a moment ago with another sign, but I'm a big fan of the artist Shag. He's a Californian artist, brilliant, and I love collecting his works. During Mercury retrograde, if I was a Taurus rising person, and I'd been keeping my shag prints, let's say in the garage, on the ground and something, and it was perhaps prone to sort of damage from flooding or something like that, Mercury retrograde would say, okay, are you taking care of your possessions in a way that's really right? Are you honoring these valuable paintings the way they should be honored? They should be up on a shelf, or better still, on display in your home. Are you looking after your stuff? Mercury will be making sure with this retrograde phase that you are taking care of your stuff, that you're looking after your material possessions, and that you're managing things appropriately. So he's going to call you to attention in those realms and make you do an assessment of all the stuff that you have, and is it serving you well? Do you need to throw out some old clothes or some old linen, or maybe you've got a truckload of kitchen utensils that really just take up space in your home. You never use them. Maybe it's time to get rid of those. So there's a real assessment period of the value of what you've got. Is it serving you? Are you taking care of what you've got? It's a real focus on your material goods. Also, it rules the 5th house. So there's a Mercury's calling you to assess and make sure everything's okay regarding your love life, regarding your boyfriend, girlfriend relationships, regarding your children. Are you allowing your children to be themselves, or are you trying to control them and make sure you dominate their lives? You know, Mercury's going to make you reassess, what's this relationship like with my kids? Again, I used this illustration a moment ago and I'll use it again. Maybe, you know, your kids get home from school and they jump on the Xbox and that's where they stay until bedtime, and you're busy doing, you know, the gardening, the cooking, the cleaning, the everything else, and you don't actually communicate with your kids. And so Mercury's saying, hang on, come on guys, readdress this. This is not working. You need to actually work on this relationship. Mercury rules Virgo. And in retrograde period, he's going to make you say, look, are you ready to up level here? Have you got the right attitude to your relationship with your children, to your relationship with your lovers? Let's work this out now so that you can move ahead in life. Also, your creative expression is seen by the 5th house. Are you being true to yourself? Are you using your God-given gifts and abilities and your skills, Mercury rules skills, to, you know, express yourself to the world? I mean, we're all different. We're all been placed on this planet in order to shine, you know, to share our light with people. We are the embodiment of a certain moment in time when we were born. Nobody else has that moment in time to the exact, you know, second that we do. And so we have a responsibility to shine our creative expression out to the world. Are we doing so? Mercury's going to call you to attention there too. Do you have the right attitude towards your creativity, or is it just a sideline for you that's like, oh, whatever? You know, Mercury says time to get real with your creativity, time to really invest in it. He's going to make you address the authenticity of your relationship to your own creativity in life. So finally now we're going to move to Aries. This is a big, long, a long session today. Aries puts this energy, when you're Aries rising, puts this energy in the 12th house. So you might be feeling indecisive, you might be feeling bored or frustrated with the following areas we're going to talk about in life, or even a sense of an urgent need to change something in these areas. Mercury is asking you to readdress these realms and make sure that you're mentally on solid ground, ready to transition on the 18th of April when he moves out of his retrograde phase. This is the final piece of sorting out that needs to be done before you're going to up level in the following areas of life. And for Aries rising people, it's very, very significant because it's happening in their 12th house on the last degree of the horoscope for them. Like collectively, it's the last degree of the horoscope, but for Aries rising, it is the final degree. It's the last degree of their 12th house. So it's very, very karmic. This retrograde period for Aries rising people, it's about focusing on and purging karma. Mercury is going to make you address past life issues, even if you're not aware that that's what you're doing. So you might get a desire to journal more, to go introspective a lot more, to assess, okay, what's on my heart right now? Maybe you had many experiences in life of being betrayed or being wounded in some way. Maybe you've been exploited, maybe you've been dominated, and it just is a reoccurring theme over and over and over and over again in your life. And like, why does this keep happening to me? Mercury is going to make you look at it. Go deep, look at the karma here. Okay, why do I keep attracting people who betray me, who let me down, who disappoint me? Why does that keep occurring? And then you'll look deep within, well, what is it about me that keeps drawing people like that into my life? And Mercury will cause you to do a bit of karmic purging with this retrograde period. It's very, very powerful for Aries rising Aries rising people this particular period. So, you know, take time out if you need to, Aries rising people. Go and to a day spa, have a retreat, maybe go, even if it's simple as going down to the local coffee shop and just sitting there with a cup of coffee or a nice cup of chai tea or something and journaling. Write out your frustrations, your sadnesses, anything that comes up, and let it flow, because this is what Mercury is asking you to do in order to make you ready for the transition into the whole new around the horoscope. Pisces rules escapism, so going and having a day spa or going on a holiday or taking time out. It's a good thing to do. If you know, perhaps I would hesitate to sort of put travel plans in place during Mercury retrograde. But if you've been tuned in and turned on, you might have put a holiday in place a couple of months ago, and now you can take the holiday. If you haven't done that, then like I said, go to a day spa, maybe go to a weekend ashram retreat, take time out at a coffee shop. Just any type of escaping from the ordinary everyday routine is really healthy for you right now, you Aries rising people, towards dealing with this. You want to ask yourself some questions. You know, am I being true to my creative inspirations? This is a house of divine creativity, divine spirituality, divine healing. Have you sought out any types of like divine healing that you might need in your soul? Particularly pertinent for you Aries rising people because of the karmic component of this retrograde period. Pisces is divine healing, so you can be very much healed from any karmic loops, karmic patterns, Gandanta repeating cycles that keep occurring. This is a time of potential great healing for you guys. So have you done some energy work? Have you gone and got acupuncture? Have you done some counseling, you know, some process counseling or something like that, or some kind of you know, sort out some psychic surgery or something like, or even past life regressions, because past life is ruled by the 12th house. Past life regressions can be very, very therapeutic for you now. It's very much a good time for you Aries rising people to go internal, sort out their crap in order to be healed. So go for it, guys. It's a really opportune time for you to do that sort of work. Now, Mercury also for you guys rules the 3rd house and it rules the 6th house. So these are other areas of life that are also going to be influenced and are going to need your attention on a mental, attitudinal level. You're writing, you're speaking, you're learning. You're going to need to perhaps change your attitude, change your mental approach to how you learn, how you speak, how you write, how you, you know, socially interact even. This is the 3rd house, and even how you you run your small business is seen by the 3rd house. So this retrograde period is going to make sure that if you're running a small business, that all the legal matters are okay. You know, that you've got insurances in place and you've got business partnerships that are actually working. It's a time for reviewing all that sort of stuff. Maybe if you've got into some sort of a course or you know, degree or certificate course or something like that, you might need to go over, okay, am I really suited to this? Is it really pressing all my buttons? Is it turning me on? Is this what I really want to do? Mercury is going to make you readdress your relationship to that learning experience, or to that you know, to that opportunity to speak or to write even. So he's going to be causing you to address those things. And then he also rules the 6th house, which is your work, your everyday routines and your health. So you might, it's a really good time to perhaps have a visit with a specialist. You might have a regular, you know, heart specialist that you see, or a kidney specialist or something, and it's a really good time to go and revisit and just check everything's fine, everything's working as it should. Focus on your health, a dietitian, a nutritionalist. Let's sort out any health issues. Let's make sure everything is smick in those realms of life. Plus, it's also, 6th house is related to people who are lower than us on the social rung of things. So people, for example, who we employ, you know, maybe I hire someone to come and clean my house. Oh, if only. That would be somebody who, you know, an employee for me, if I was so lucky. That would need to be addressed. The relationship with people who are our employees, or the person who serves us at the supermarket or at McDonald's or wherever. That is somewhere that we need to, a relationship that we will need to address through this Mercury retrograde period. Do we have the right attitude to these people? Are we integrous with our relationships with these people who are you know, less well off than us, the people who are sick, the people who are poor in our community? Are we interacting with them in a way that is compassionate and kind, and like Mercury in the sign of Pisces, compassion, kindness, care, and connected to the 6th house Virgo, which is about people who are in more lowly positions. So are we being integrous there? So our health, people who are lower than us on the social ranking, and finally, Virgo is connected to your daily routines. Is your daily routine really serving you? You're going to have to readdress what you're doing, you know, getting up and going for a jog at 6 o'clock in the morning. Is that really working for you? Do you want to continue to do that? Mercury's going to make you mentally readdress what your routine is like, whether it's serving you, whether it's upholding you and helping you transition into the new phase that will occur after the 18th of April. So what a huge session of the Astro Weather Report we've had today. There's been so much to cover. Mercury retro is such a big topic, so I hope this has been beneficial. I hope you've gained some wisdom. I hope you've gained some insights and understanding. Whew, I'm ready to go and have the rest of my cold coffee now. Let's just close with a quick prayer. Loving universal energy, we just thank you for the big shift that's occurring on the 6th of March, which includes Mercury retrograde. May it teach us, may we feel supported by the universe no matter what happens, no matter what unfolds with this Mercury retrograde period. May it be for our highest good, for our greater soul up leveling, and for us being able to mature into the people that we incarnated to be. Thank you so much that you've always got our back, and so it is. Thank you for joining me, and we'll catch up again next week.